welcome back to the Savage Executive Podcast, where we lead with clarity, build with strategy, and multiply what matters. I'm your host, Steve Smith, and today we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked but essential parts of our leadership, identity. This is episode 14. We're going to talk about reinventing leadership identity, who you need to become next. Let's start with today's savage moment. The leader you are today won't get you where you need to go tomorrow. It's a simple truth, but it can be a hard one to accept. Because whether you're leading a business, a ministry, or an entire organization, there comes a moment when you realize you've outgrown your old operating system. The way you think, lead, plan, and decide has reached its limit. That realization isn't failure, it's the beginning of reinvention. A number of years ago, when I started leading where I am today, I noticed that as we grew and as I took on more responsibility, what got me into a leadership role isn't what's going to help me to lead the next phase of our growth. They say that most leaders get elevated to one level of leadership higher than what they can actually handle. And I want to teach you how you can continue to handle more and more leadership opportunities as we reinvent our leadership. What I've noticed over the years is growth exposes gaps. When an organization grows, its systems become more complex. We talked about that last episode. Complexity kills clarity. But there's another kind of complexity that can slow progress just as much. It's an outdated leadership identity. When you start leading, you build habits, routines, and beliefs that make you effective at one level. But over time, those same habits can start holding you back. The things that once fueled your success can now limit your capacity. Maybe you used to lead by doing, but now you need to lead by developing. Maybe you used to find fulfillment in solving problems, but now your role is to empower others to solve them. Or maybe you used to find identity in being needed, and now your next step is learning to let go. Whatever the shift looks like, every leader hits that moment where they ask themselves, am I leading from who I was or who I'm becoming? When I look back over my own leadership journey, I can pinpoint seasons where I've had to reinvent. It seems like it's every few years. There was a time when I was hands-on with everything. I was involved in every decision, every process, and every detail. I told myself it was because I cared about excellence, and that was true. But it was also because my identity was tied to control. I found my worth in contribution rather than in cultivation. But as my responsibilities grew, that model had to break. I couldn't carry it all. And I realized something uncomfortable. I had to stop identifying as the doer and start embracing the identity of the developer. And that's the tension that every leader faces. The tension between productivity and identity. We want to feel valuable, and often we equate value with activity. But leadership identity is less about what you do and more about who you enable. In my context, that's been one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn. As an executive pastor overseeing a church and a large Christian school, I can't measure my success by how busy I am. I have to measure it by how well the mission moves forward without me being in the middle of every decision. In business terms, that's called scaling leadership. But in practice, it's identity transformation. So let me share with you a few shifts if you're going to reinvent your leadership. If you want to grow as a leader, you have to reinvent at each level of responsibility. Here are 3 identity shifts that every leader eventually has to make. Shift number 1, from control to clarity. Early stage leaders crave control. It's how we ensure quality and consistency. But at higher levels, control becomes a bottleneck. The goal isn't to control every decision. It's to create clarity so others can decide well. Leaders who reinvent successfully learn to define the what and the why, but they release the how. When your team understands the mission clearly, you don't have to hold the reins as tightly. You've built the kind of clarity that sustains itself. Shift number 2, from activity to identity. It's easy to equate leadership success with busyness. We wear productivity like a badge of honor. But the next level of leadership demands that you separate your identity from your activity. Your calendar doesn't define your calling. You are not what you do, you are who you're becoming. Leaders who fail to make this shift often burn out or they plateau because they keep trying to prove their worth through output instead of influence. The next level leader learns to find identity in purpose, not pace. Shift number 3, from competence to capacity. Most leaders build their confidence on competence, what they can do well. But reinvention requires you to expand your capacity, not just your competence. That means you have to learn from new voices. Surround yourself with people who are better than you in key areas. And most importantly, stay humble enough to keep growing. Competence got you here. Capacity will take you there. When you stop growing, your team stops following. It's wisdom to know that reinvention isn't weakness. There's this myth in leadership that reinvention means you've failed or lost your edge. It's the opposite. Reinvention is what keeps you sharp. It's what keeps you relevant. It's what keeps your mission alive. I often say to my team, if we're going to lead people into the future, we can't keep living out of the past. That applies to organizations, but it applies directly to leaders as well. Your leadership identity is a living thing. It needs space to grow and to stretch. If you don't define who you're becoming, the demands of leadership will define it for you. So pause and ask yourself this: what part of my leadership identity is outdated? What habits or mindsets worked in the last season but won't work in the next? Who do I need to become to lead at the next level of impact? Maybe you should ask those that are closest to you or a mentor that you trust to help you to make these leadership shifts. So here's your savage takeaway for today. The leader you're becoming can't fit into the version of you that's comfortable. Growth requires reinvention. All right, here's your challenge for this week. Take one area of your leadership identity, how you make decisions, how you measure success, how you handle control, and ask, what does the next version of me look like in this area? Then write it down, name it, start living it. Because if you don't intentionally reinvent your leadership identity, you'll eventually outgrow it, and your team will feel the gap before you do. Thanks for tuning in to the Savage Executive Podcast. This episode spoke to you. Share it with another leader who's ready to grow beyond their current level. And remember, stay sharp, lead boldly, and keep building what matters.